I live in central London, and I see a lot of people who are still stuck in very old ways of thinking, with a lot of fear and greed. There's a lot of poverty, a lot of people chasing material objects and worshipping false idols like celebrities and so forth. I have problems in my heart seeing these people somehow changing in just under 2 years, or just over 2 years. How are we going to have all these?
Well, one of the things about that is that, as I'm sure there's loads and loads of books about people's personal awakenings now, about people just suddenly becoming aware that they're not the subject, they're not the whole thing, that actually they're an object floating in space, and that they're part of the cosmic background. Now, amazingly, this is happening to, obviously it's happening to Christians and visionaries and mystics, it's always happened. But it's happening to a lot more Christians and visionaries and mystics now than it ever has happened to before. But the ones I find are really interesting are the crane drivers and the lorry drivers and the people who've got no idea that there is anything other than driving the lorry or using the crane. And for some reason they too are just waking up. And there's a fantastic book by a guy called David Cass. It's called Perfect Brilliant Stillness. And he was a guy, he was a bit of a seeker, he was training to be a Catholic priest, he was, and at the last minute decided that it probably wasn't worth the candle. And he started pursuing other things, ayahuasca, so he was a seeker, this one, but suddenly it happened to him. The bottom fell out of his world and he realised he wasn't actually there at all. And he was then pretty crazy for 3 or 4 years, and then spent 7 or 8 years after that apparently being a woodworker and getting back to his life, but knowing all the time that he wasn't there was nobody home. Until eventually he wrote this book which explains what it's like to be like that. But that same experience is happening to people without them looking at all. And the thing is that what's happening here is we've forgotten what we really are. And that is one of the symptoms of it. I agree that it's really, really difficult. I find it difficult. I look out there and I think it's so, but at the same time we know, don't we? Not only because our Eastern mystics, all of our old histories, if you like, the perennial wisdom tells us that we're in some way in an illusion and that what's going on is an educational experience. And we've forgotten that. And the thing is that now our science, physics, especially physics, but more and more biology, is showing us that the world shapes itself according to what we think and see. Right back even to this fantastic experiment by the Institute of Noetic Sciences, who were looking in to whether prayer and meditation and hands-on healing helps with making people better. And obviously they found out that it did. There's now meta-studies on that take small degrees of positive kind of effects in experiments. And if you constantly get that positive, you end up with a kind of statistical thing which says this is a really, really amazing. And what these guys did was they took a load of statistics that had never been looked at before, from kind of, I don't know, the 60s or what have you, some records, some figures, and they randomly assigned them to people to pray for them and meditate over them and things like that. And they got the same results once they looked at the statistics as they would have got had they used actual patients in real time. So somehow this influence of the mind was working backwards on statistics that hadn't been looked at. What do you call it? The reality wave hadn't broken over them. Nobody had looked at them, so they were still waiting to see what they were going to be. So it's most important that we do realise that we are going to do this thing, and that the only thing that can stop us from doing is fear. And you know, there's loads of things that could happen. If the satellites stop working, there's no more telly. And okay, people might eat each other for a bit, but they'd soon be a lot better.